Hello and welcome back to Chargers Talk 4630. I'm Stacey, and today I want to talk about something that's got a lot of Charger fans fired up this morning. But before we get started, if you enjoy this content, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out my website at slmexpressions.com, where you can find a lot of Chargers content exclusively just for that website. You'll never find it nowhere else, so check that out for me. Now, yesterday, the Rams made one of the biggest moves we've seen in years, right? They traded for Myles Garrett, who, in my opinion, is the best defensive player in football, no doubt. And immediately, my phone started buzzing. I was being asked, what did I think of the trade and why didn't the Chargers try to get him? Now, my son called me and we talked about it for a little while. Then I went on social media to see what the fans were saying. And I saw comments like, how could Joe Ortiz let the Rams get him? Now the Rams going to the Super Bowl. The Chargers had a chance to get him, but they blew it. Now, look, I understand the reaction because if you're a football fan and you watch Myles Garrett play, you know you're watching a future Hall of Famer. You're talking about a player with elite size, elite speed, elite strength, right? Elite technique, and one of the most explosive first steps the game has ever seen. He's that type of player who can completely wreck a game plan. You could double team him, you could chip him, you could slide protection to him, and sometimes it just don't matter. That's how dominant he is. So let's make one thing crystal clear before we go any further. This is not me saying Myles Garrett isn't worth the excitement. I'm not saying the Rams didn't improve. I'm not saying this was not a great move for the Rams. If you're a Rams fan, you're excited and happy for him. I think most people felt like he wanted out of Cleveland, especially after requesting a trade last year, right? Myles Garrett deserves every ounce of respect he gets because he earned it. But here's where I stand with it. I'm not going to get caught up with why didn't we get him. My feeling is the Chargers were not building their roster around the possibility of trading for Myles Garrett. Nobody was, right? Nobody knew he was even going to be available. Nobody knew the Rams would make this move. And NFL organizations don't abandon years of planning because another team made a splash move. That's just not how franchises operate. I know a lot of times I look at football different than front office do. Because I'm a fan first, right? We see a superstar become available and we say, go get him. But front offices ask questions like, what does this cost? What does this do to our salary cap? What draft picks we got to give up? How does this affect our long-term plans? And does it fit our vision? Those are completely different conversations. Joe Ortiz, Jim Harbaugh, the scouting department, player personnel, coaches, and ownership, they don't sit around asking themselves, what would Twitter or X do? What would Stacey do? What would Facebook or Instagram do? They sit around saying, what's the best plan for this team to have a successful season? Because every NFL team have its own blueprint, right? Every NFL team have its own vision. They have their own timeline. The Chargers aren't supposed to copy the Rams. The Rams ain't supposed to copy the Chiefs. The Chiefs ain't supposed to copy the Bills. Every organization is trying to solve the same puzzle using different pieces. And when I look at the Chargers, one of those pieces is Tuli Tuipulotu. Now let's talk about Tuli for a minute. Because I think people are overlooking something really important. Tuli is young. He's improving. He's still developing. Tuli is still on his rookie contract. And as good and as productive as Tuli's been, he hasn't come close to reaching his ceiling yet. The Chargers have a talented group of pass rushers, and I think Tuli is about to explode and have a breakout season. Now compare that to Myles Garrett. Garrett is 30 years old. He's still elite. He's still dominant. He's still one of the most feared players in football. But if you're the Chargers, are you really going to give away valuable draft capital and potentially disrupt your long-term plans for a player who may have 3 to 4 elite years left when you already have a young pass rusher who could be a cornerstone for the next decade? Are you really going to do that? That's the question. Look, here's something that I think shouldn't be overlooked. The Chargers have a history of letting homegrown, talented players leave this organization. And a lot of those decisions have come back to haunt them. Yes. Think about it. They let Drew Brees walk out the door without even offering him a contract. He goes to New Orleans, becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback, wins a Super Bowl, and he completely changed the history of that franchise. The only reason the Chargers organization didn't catch more grief over that decision is because Phillip Rivers turned out to be a great quarterback himself. Then for those who are old enough, there was Fred Dean. At that time, the San Diego Chargers traded him to the 49ers in 1981, and all he did was become one of the missing pieces on a dominant defense that helped San Francisco win multiple Super Bowls. How about Vincent Jackson? You remember him? The Chargers didn't want to pay him after his rookie contract. He leaves and continues having a productive career. He and Mike Evans gave cornerback fits in Tampa Bay. He was that kind of talent. Then you had the late, great Junior Seau. You had Rodney Harrison. Two Charger legends. Two players who ended up leaving and becoming difference makers on their teams, and Rodney Harrison won multiple Super Bowls with the New England Patriots. So when people say trade Thule, go get Myles Garrett, my question is why? Why would they trade away a young player that this organization drafted, developed, and invested in? Why would I want Thule Tuipulotu to leave Los Angeles, spend the next 10 years becoming one of the best pass rushers in football somewhere else? No, thank you. No, no, no. Now, don't misunderstand me. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in football, in my opinion. And if you put him on your team tomorrow, your defense instantly gets better. But Thule is young. He's ascending. He hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can become. The Chargers spent years looking for a pass rusher they could build around. I believe they found one. So no, I'm not in favor of drafting players, developing players, investing years into players, and then shipping them off just as they're getting ready to hit their prime, right? Nope. Not in favor of trading Thule Tuipulotu with several players and multiple picks. Nah. In fact, I think a few years from now, we're going to be talking about Thule Tuipulotu as one of the elite pass rushers in the National Football League. That's the reality front offices have to evaluate. The Chargers in this new regime is trying to build success that's going to be consistent every year. Not just make a big headline, right? And let's not forget, the Rams are not standing between the Chargers and the Super Bowl. The Rams is in the NFC and the Chargers is in the AFC. The Chargers' road to the Super Bowl do not go through Myles Garrett. It don't go through Sean McVay. It don't go through the Rams. The Chargers have to deal with Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Bills, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They have to deal with the likes of the Houston Texans, right? Those are the teams that stand in between the Chargers and getting to the Super Bowl. So let me ask you this. If before yesterday you believed the Chargers could reach the AFC Championship game, right? If before yesterday you believed the Chargers could make a Super Bowl run, if before yesterday you believed Jim Harbaugh was building a championship caliber football team, if you believe that, then why would one trade involving a team in the opposite conference suddenly change your mindset regarding how you feel about the Chargers this season? I think we're going to see the best version of Justin Herbert under Mike McDaniel. I think the offensive line will be a whole lot better, especially getting back both of your tackles. We've had a top defense the last few seasons, and I think it's safe to say they're going to be better. And I know that Jim Harbaugh didn't forget how to coach. Nothing I thought about the Chargers changed for me. The only thing that changed is another team got better. I acknowledge that. And while that's important, it doesn't erase what the Chargers have been building. In fact, if everything breaks right, this move might create one of the greatest stories in NFL history. Think about it. Imagine the Rams win the NFC and the Chargers win the AFC. Imagine both teams making it all the way to the Super Bowl. For the first time ever, we could possibly see the Los Angeles Rams versus the Los Angeles Chargers in the Super Bowl. Two teams from the same city. Two teams playing in the same stadium. Both teams technically playing at home. That would be one of the most incredible Super Bowl storylines we've ever heard or seen. But until that happens, I'm not changing my expectations for this football team. I believe this team was capable of making a deep playoff run before the Myles Garrett trade. I still believe that today. I believe this team could reach the AFC Championship game before the trade. I still believe that today. I believe this team had a legitimate chance to compete for a Super Bowl before that trade yesterday. I still believe that today. Because we all know that championships ain't won on paper and they ain't won in June. Championships is not won on social media. They're won with preparation, development, coaching, execution, and staying committed to a plan, right? The Rams made a great move. Nobody is denying that. But the Chargers don't need to become the Rams. They need to become the best version of the Los Angeles Chargers. And if they do that, they'll have every opportunity to accomplish everything they set out to do this season. I just wanted to share my thoughts on the trade because I was asked what did I think, and I wanted to talk about it with you guys. I just love talking about the past and the present when it comes to the Chargers. I'm saying, as far as the Chargers are concerned involving the trade, it means nothing for me, and it changed nothing for me. I still feel the same way today that I did yesterday before the trade went down. So what's your thoughts? Do you still trust the long-term vision that Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh are building here? I do. Leave your comments below, and if you want to continue the conversation, head over to slmexpressions.com and continue the conversations in NFL Hub, Hot Takes, and Community sections. Until next time, this is Stacey with Chargers Talk 4630. Peace and bow tie.
Chargers Talk 4630.